Welcome back, Year 5. Today we'll be reading Chapter 5 of Fantastic Mr. Fox. Our focus is vocabulary. Our learning intentions are to use a resource to find the meaning of unknown words, and by resource I mean like a dictionary or the internet. And our second objective is to choose the most suitable definition for a word based on the sentence it appears in. But what does that mean to choose the most suitable definition? Well, it just means choosing the definition that makes the most sense depending on the sentence that the word appears in. Let me show you an example. That's the best way to explain this. So here I have a little passage, and we're going to look for what the word in bold means. Sarah sat nervously with her head down. She could feel the principal's eyes on her. If only she could go back in time and tell herself not to make farting noises every time her teacher turned around. Sarah, I am very disappointed in you, the principal finally sighed. You know such conduct is not allowed. Our bolded red word is conduct. What does that mean? Well, when I looked it up, I found that it has more than one definition. These were the two definitions I found. Number 1, the manner in which a person behaves, especially on a particular occasion or in a particular context. So that's one meaning. It's like their behavior. Number 2, the action or manner of managing an activity or organization. So it basically has to do with managing things or directing or running things, controlling. When I think back to that sentence or the context that the word conduct appeared in, which one do you think it means? Behavior or management? Well, I think behavior makes more sense because the whole passage was about Sarah's behavior. She did something she wasn't supposed to do, and that's why she ended up in the principal's office. Let's go back to that passage and replace conduct with the word behavior. So, Sarah sat nervously with her head down. She could feel the principal's eyes on her. If only she could go back in time and tell herself not to make farting noises every time her teacher turned around. Okay, so Sarah did something wrong. She behaved the wrong way. Let's see if we're right now. Sarah, I am very disappointed in you, the principal finally sighed. You know such behavior is not allowed. So there I replaced conduct with behavior to check if it still made sense in the whole context of this passage. And it does. Putting the word management there would not make sense. You know such management is not allowed. That doesn't work. So clearly it was the first definition. Keep this in mind today as we go through our lesson, because sometimes when you come across a word you don't know and you look it up in the dictionary, it comes up with more than one definition. You have to use the context that the word appears in to choose the right definition. Otherwise, you might completely misunderstand the word. All right, let's get into the text now, and we're going to look for some vocabulary words to find the meanings of. All right, so we left off where Mr. Fox and the other foxes started to hear the tractors above starting to dig. So now at chapter 6, called The Race, let's see what happens next. Now there began a desperate race, the machines against the foxes. In the beginning, the hill looks like this. Take a look at the picture. After about an hour, as the machines bit away more and more soil from the hilltop, it looked like this. Well, we see things are happening. I wonder what's going through the foxes' heads right now. Let's see what happens next. Sometimes the foxes would gain a little ground and the clanking noises would grow fainter, and Mr. Fox would say, "We're going to make it. I'm sure we are." But then a few moments later, the machines would come back at them, and the crunch of the mighty shovels would get louder and louder. Once the foxes actually saw the sharp metal edge of one of the shovels as it scraped up the earth just behind them. "Keep going, my darlings," panted Mr. Fox. "Don't give up." "Keep going," the fat Bogus shouted to Bounce and Bean. "We'll get him any moment now." "Have you caught sight of him yet?" Bean called back. "Not yet," shouted Bogus, "but I think you're close." "I'll pick him up with my bucket," shouted Bounce. "I'll chop him to pieces." But by lunchtime, the machines were still at it, and so were the poor foxes. The hill now looked like this. The farmers didn't stop for lunch. They were too keen to finish the job. "Hey there, Mr. Fox," yelled Bounce, leaning out of his tractor. "We're coming to get you now." "You've had your last chicken," yelled Bogus. "You'll never come prowling around my farm again." A sort of madness had taken hold of the three men. The tall, skinny Bean and dwarfish, pot-bellied Boontz were driving their machines like maniacs, racing the motors and making the shovels dig at a terrific speed. The fat Bogus was hopping about like a dervish and shouting, "Faster! Faster!" By 5 o'clock in the afternoon, this is what had happened to the hill. The hole the machines had dug was like the crater of a volcano. It was such an extraordinary sight that crowds of people came rushing out from the surrounding villages to have a look. They stood on the edge of the crater and stared down at Bogus and Boontz and Bean. "Hey there, Bogus, what's going on?" "We're after a fox." "You must be mad." The people jeered and laughed, but this only made the three farmers more furious and more obstinate and more determined than ever not to give up until they had caught the fox. And there we have it, the end of chapter 6. A mad race is going on. Well, our focus today is vocabulary, so let's dig a little deeper into that. Now it's time for your independent work. Remember, our focus today was vocabulary, and specifically we're finding the most suitable definition for words that we don't know. On the next slide, you're going to see a table. In fact, let me go there and explain it now. Alright, so here's that table I was talking about. These 7 words appear in chapter 6. In fact, we just read all of them. What I want you to do is copy this table, and then you're going to have to go back in the video and find the sentence that each of these words appears in. Then, the reason you're copying the sentence, it's super important, is because when you look up the words, either with a dictionary or with Google, you have to have the right context, because many of these words are going to have more than one meaning, and it's important that you get the correct meaning for this context. For example, the 5th word down, mad. When you think mad and when I think mad, the first thing I think is angry. But in this case, that is not what mad means. So you're going to have to look for a different definition of mad. To look up the words, I strongly recommend you use a dictionary. But if you don't have one, you can just go on Google and search the words that way. Please, the most important thing here is that you pick the most suitable definition. I should not see 4 or 5 definitions copied for each word, like you just copied it straight out of the dictionary. You have to make the choice which definition makes the most sense. Alright, you guys, when you're done, take a picture, send it to me, and you know the drill. Stay safe, and I'll see you soon.